Let me go through my lecture in the second slice. As we reflect on the turbulent year 2020, it is not clear what direction the world is heading. The specter of COVID-19 and the economic costs generated by the pandemic make the outlook on the eve of the 2021 quite dim. The existing problems, political radicalization, economic crisis, huge disparity between rich and poor, as well as the climate change, might become even more threatening. We might ask, what is the position, strategy, and the role of higher education in dealing and facing the current predicament? Turn the ivory tower into a fortress, oblivious to the peril outside, or open up and be active and generate visions and instigate actions? Or looking from inside, should university fight to be solely a hub of academic reflection and research, or be a generator of vocational training, providing industrial societies with the type of education that assure the graduate with good job prospects? Well, universities comprise the best minds and are responsible for education and the prospect of the young generation. Hence, inadvertently, are responsible for the future of our societies. The fact is that although they are quite costly, ubiquitous worldwide, and employ a huge amount of people, these institutions of higher learning do not possess political power or are not directly involved in curing the ills of our society. For that purpose, they are the institution of the state and politicians. Well, the university, not unlike the monasteries in the Middle Ages, they provide protection and calm environment for individuals and groups to work and study together. And branching into 1,500 disciplines, they preserve the past and generate the new knowledge. But there has been a nagging question: should university not only prepare the future leaders, but also lead the future, considering their intellectual capacity and social influence? Next slide. The recurring question of legitimacy has and will become more and more present. Although the technological innovation and scientific knowledge mostly originate in universities, laboratories, and research centers, the driving force of economic benefits relate to modern technology and production are accumulated in large corporations, military, and independent startup ventures. Surely, the leaders of profitable industry, innovation generating individual, and businessmen, almost all, graduated from university. However, the connection to a successful graduate is intangible rather than being the source of legitimacy for the university. And every institution paid from the state budget must prove over and over again its reason to exist. That is today more and more difficult, especially for humanities and the social sciences that might seem irrelevant to the politicians who are mesmerized by the present, the re-election cycle, and the things that always need urgent financial help, much more than the education. Slide 5. So how this need for legitimation and university status quo in the 21st century relate to the undergraduate education in general and liberal arts in particular? Indeed, the title and focus of this talk. Well, we are all educators and have to ask ourselves, how does the education of our university prepare the young generation for the world in a constant flux? How can a university prepare its students for the future jobs when, at our current pace, the information available for any one discipline is being doubled every 7 years? The simple transfer of current knowledge from professor to student within the framework of a narrow discipline organization is wholly inadequate. Yet this is the way the vast majority of undergraduate education in Europe is taking place. Studying from day one in a narrow discipline, professor lecture to massive audience of students, and little attention is paid to vital and needed intellectual and soft skills. Well, I cannot comment about Korea, but would like to hear from you. What's the situation of the undergraduate degree in Korea? In Europe, it is a system inherited from the 20th century, and there is a great resistance to change the current system. Note how the large universities, I don't know how about in Korea, but definitely in Europe, moved smoothly to online education. Well, not uncommon is that the lectures have been recorded or pre-recorded for the whole semester, and they are being released gradually as on the TV, as it was a TV series. Next slide. The focus of all prestigious university is on the research and graduate programs, publications, grant and research projects. That we all know. These are factors providing the precious points for the Shanghai ranking system, the holy grail of all big research universities. Under these circumstances, the undergraduate students are viewed often as a necessary burden. Their teaching is tedious repetition of basic material that is far from the cutting-edge knowledge discussed at prestigious conferences and published in current research journals. Besides, the Shanghai Index, the Shanghai Index cares little about what and how the undergraduate learn, not because it is unimportant or simple to achieve, but because it is very difficult to measure and monitor. Let's face it, no grant and research project obtained by university depends on the well-being of undergraduates. And yet, the same 18 to 20-year-old are the most important for the liberal arts education model. Why? Because besides other things, it is the most formative age of an individual, and it should be provided with maximum attention and assistance. It is a matter of timing to instill critical capacity at certain age. As Stanley Katz argues, a professor from United States, he writes in the end of the slide, "It is my conviction," quote, "that undergraduate education often serves as the last and the best chance post-secondary students have to broaden their intellectual horizon and to prepare for the great demands that society will place on them. In addition, undergraduate education provides the best circumstances in which democratic values can be inculcated and reinforced." End of quote. Don't you agree? Well, recall your time at that age and ponder over your studies. Who and what was the most important person to shape your views? Next slide, please. In the rest of my talk, I will offer you a brief outline how liberal arts evolved historically and how and why it was able to re-emerge in Europe during the recent years. I will describe the basic models, how it manifests in Europe today, and perhaps one of those might provide inspiration for your institution and your reflection about education in your country. At the end, I will briefly inform you about the work of ECOLAS, a European network of liberal arts, art schools and programs. Next slide, please. I will quote two of my dear colleagues, Lauren Bosch and Hans Adriaansens, about the history and content of the liberal arts. A, because they are dear friends, and B, they are very important for liberal arts education in Europe. So this is kind of a homage to two of them. They have been in the forefront of the promotion of liberal arts in Europe. Well, there are many possible takes on the subject, but they offer excellent overview of the two issues. Professor Bosch writes about the history of the model, quote, "The term liberal arts is certainly not new to Europe. For centuries, beginning with its origin in a Greco-Roman tradition and its evolution through the medieval period and the Renaissance. It defined higher education through its eventual organization around the 7 liberal arts of the trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric, which was part of the literary arts, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and these were mathematical arts. By focusing on the cultivation of wisdom through the nourishment of the soul, by encouragement with and mastery of these 7 liberal arts, classical scholars meant to define a distinction between education and training. And such a distinction remains characteristic of the liberal arts as we see them employed today. It is the habits of mind and modes of learning from the classical period that have lent themselves to the modern aim of liberal arts. The importance of critical thinking and assuming self-responsibility for one's thoughts and the articulation of those thoughts, as well as the need to acquire an understanding of nature through the critical examination of all things, remains among the foundation stones of liberal arts education." End of quote. Well, let me add that the liberal arts model moved to United States from Europe in the 17th century and evolved and survived there until the present in over 1,000 independent, mostly residential and relatively small liberal arts colleges, many of them surely you know. Almost exclusively, liberal arts studies in the United States are undergraduate 4-year-long programs. And even the most famous, relatively large Ivy League university, Harvard, Princeton, Columbia in the United States have undergraduate programs based on liberal arts model. Next slide. So what does the liberal arts represent in the modern setting? Although its definition is rather difficult, Professor Adriaansens, the founder of the liberal arts movement in the Netherlands, provides a very succinct summary. Quote, "Liberal arts education is a truly academic, not a vocational type of education. In that sense, it is different from contemporary European and Asian models of higher education, in which students are often, right from the start, led into professional studies. Next to its academic orientation, which is in itself of great value, liberal arts model has 2 additional advantages. On the one hand, it provides students with the academic and multidisciplinary base for top-notch professional programs in the graduate school, for example, law school, medical school, government school, business school, engineering schools. And at the same time, it frees students from having to make a premature and ill-considered choice at a young age of 17 or 18. Thanks to the liberal arts setting, students may enter college or university without being too specific or too sure about the direction they want to major in. The liberal arts curriculum gives them the opportunity to gradually zoom in on the major or concentration they have affinity with." End of quote. It very well encapsulates a model that focuses principally on students and his or her intellectual and moral formation. Next slide, please. Well, let us review how liberal arts emerged, or more exactly, could re-emerge in Europe at the end of 20th century. It is thus relatively a new concept in Europe and still being rather unknown, and if encouraged by encountered by traditional academics, often viewed with mistrust. The change came with Bologna Declaration in 1999, which initiated, among other things, the creation of bachelor degree. Now, again, I want to stress that if you come to Europe and you might ask some academics, how is the liberal arts doing? Many people would know what is liberal arts? What is it? Is it related to liberal ideology? It is still rather a small enterprise in Europe, and that I want to stress and then make sure that I don't present that this is a Europe-wide movement. But let's see how it came to that liberal arts was able to come back, in a way, moved back from United States back to Europe to re-emerge. One of the aim of the European Union educational policy has been the coordination and synchronization of its diverse systems in order to promote students and academic exchanges and diploma recognition. And this has happened in the 70s, 80s, but especially in the 90s and after 2000, when European Union was expanded of the former communist countries, where Slovakia was one of them. Although each country preserves sovereignty over its accreditation process and the shape, size, and number of its university, the interest of all has been to allow students and academics to participate in exchanges and cooperation. In order to achieve this, the main provision of the Bologna Declaration was the introduction of so-called European higher educational area, which primarily allow credit transfer system where each course taught at one university would be transferable to another university in the same or another university country. This led to explosion of student exchanges where millions of students within Europe receive a stipend to spend a semester or year of their study at another university abroad. This has for years been hailed as the greatest success of the Bologna process and was particularly beneficial to the young scholar and PhD students to expand their knowledge, establish contacts, and enhance their research. Next slide. The other aim of the Bologna Declaration was the division of university studies into bachelor and master degree. The old 5-year-long program and PhD studies into undergraduate and graduate cycles. However, this reform has taken place only at the last moment, without much preparation or aim to radically differentiate the purpose and the nature of both degree, the bachelor and master. Indeed, the introduction of bachelor and master study in Europe could have been of great benefit if the focus and purpose of the two had been clearly delineated. For example, if the first degree, bachelor, offered more general education, focusing on cognitive competence and training so-called intellectual skills, while the master degree would offer a professional degree or a preparation for a PhD studies. This reform, unfortunately, has not happened, and there has been no sufficient discussion among the educators about the content and purpose of these two degrees in Europe. In the spirit, if not the structure, the old system, pre-Bologna system, remains intact, and that has been the source of substantial tension. Students still start to specialize from day one of their bachelor studies and cannot depart from this path without starting the studies all over again. After graduating, they continue in the same field of study, usually at the same department, for another 2 years to complete a master degree. So you see how this old system have been preserved despite the thing that it has been divided into bachelor and master degrees. Next slide. The problem of the bachelor degree today is that students are not trained to acquire the intellectual or soft skills so important for the further study, research, and employment. The reason is that European universities, mostly state-funded, select as many bachelor students as possible because their state financing depends on the sheer number of admitted students. What and how teaching is done, and what a student learns seems secondary to the Ministry of Education. And I'm talking about the whole Europe, not only Central Europe, where I'm from. In addition, The academic ranking of the university is not dependent on the quality of teaching and time dedicated to bachelor students, but on the number of publications, level of research, and the prominence of the professors, as I mentioned at the beginning when I discussed the holy grail of the Shanghai Index. Even the most prestigious European universities that boast top academics, scientific research, and excellent MA and PhD program offer predominantly mass bachelor degree programs. In such an environment, even excellent lecturers would not have enough time to provide feedback on student work with hundreds of students in a course. Next slide. So what kind of bachelor degree is needed for the 21st century, for Europe and perhaps for Korea? There is indeed a need for a specialization in certain field or subject area, but that should follow after undergraduate students have mastered subjects, enhancing their cognitive skills and moral outlook. The main aim of the bachelor stage should be to deepen and broaden the various aspects of knowledge, cultivate critical thinking, ability enabling one to defend one's moral position. Educator and former president of Harvard University, Derek Bock, discussed the importance of critical education that creates an autonomous individual necessary for any society at any period. He argues, a critical mind free of dogma, but nourished by human values, may be the most important product of education in a changing, fragmented society, end of quote. Indeed. And it is thus a broad liberal arts education that provides the best opportunity for a young mind to expand its intellectual horizon and to internalize democratic values. Next slide, please. Liberal arts create an environment and teaching conducive to students' learning. It consists of three components: program, scale, and pedagogy. The program relates to the content of studies, the subjects, where great variety of subjects are taught and students have an opportunity to make their choices. The second, the scale of a liberal arts program is about structure of small classes where students and teacher interact, discuss, and work together. Finally, stress on pedagogy emphasizes the special pedagogical skills of teachers who dedicate their time and energy to cultivate individual student skills and critical thinking. Alan, I pause here a little bit because those program, scale, and pedagogy, those are perfectly existing and fitting all over Europe when you do a PhD program. Small classes, dedicated teachers, choices program, but not for undergraduate education. For undergraduate education, we have these mass classes, no choice. You have to go to a program right from the beginning. And then you can reflect how it works in Korea. Next slide. This triad of liberal arts model represents a combination leading to learning that equips students for further scholarly studies as well as professional or vocational studies. It also prepares students for employment thanks to sought-after critical thinking and intellectual skills. It is not surprising that numerous corporate CEOs see the long-term value of liberal arts education, understanding that they benefit from having employees who could think, write, and present. And let me stress, not only humanities and social sciences benefit from liberal arts models, even engineers need intellectual skills for modern economy. As one scholar observes, engineers and technology employees also need strong communication and collaborative skills, knowledge of social, global, and diversity issues, ethical reasoning, and the ability of social, global, and diversity issues. And an ability to integrate these different kinds of knowledge with engineering solution. Well, let me go into the status of liberal arts in Europe. There are three models, or several models in the European liberal arts today. And that could be gradually implemented by a private institution or state-funded universities. Some are small scales and independent, while the other are large, based within large university. There is a model proposed by Adriaansens that represents the radical solution, and its introduction would require comprehensive restructuring of universities. Let me go through the three that are existing now. The one is independent colleges, another one is university colleges, and medium-sized university embracing some aspects of the liberal arts. It is important to state that besides numerous positive aspects of this type of studies, there are a few risks and problems that each model faces. And I will account of each of those problems that these setups have. So to show you how open I am and how much we reflect on this issue to set up the liberal arts in Europe. The first two models offer education predominantly in English. I want to stress that anywhere in Europe, when you go to a liberal arts college, you can study in English and assure wide international body of students. And you can see the list of all these colleges around Europe on our ECOLAS webpage, by the way. If you are interested for your children, your students who would like to study in Europe, all the list of these institutions that provide liberal arts are on the ECOLAS list. Only the third model, the medium-sized university embracing some liberal arts aspects, they don't usually provide education in English, but in their local language, although they might have some English courses. The first one, next slide, the independent colleges are the most similar to the small colleges in the United States. These have state accreditation of their domicile country, and some have also US accreditation. The advantage of this model is that there is neither state interference shaping the program, and the colleges are free to create a model suitable for their mission, adjusting to the social and political condition of the country in which they are based. There are a small number of students in seminars type classes and good student-teacher ratio that allows tutorial system where teachers closely supervise their duties. Not having postgraduate program, the academic and social interaction between teachers and students is quite intensive. Disadvantage of these small liberal arts colleges is that because of a size, the independent college provides only a limited number of courses and majors. However, the intensity of study, focus on social and intellectual skills compensates a smaller choice of courses. One has to add that because such colleges must fulfill all the bureaucratic requirements of the Ministry of Education and Accreditation Commission, this program tends to be rather costly. BISLA, the college I founded in 2006, is exactly this type of small school, aiming to have maximum 100 students. However, we plan to offer a master in political philosophy next year. We can discuss it perhaps after my lecture. Maybe there are a few political philosophers among you, and we might actually connect and cooperate. The next slide. The most common liberal arts model is university college, started in the Netherlands in 1998. It is a unit within the major university, usually having its own faculty, residence for students, and an intensive curriculum. Also, the funding usually comes from the state and is transferred through the home university. Location could be either within a campus of the founding university or geographically distant, connected only institutionally. The advantage of this model is that university colleges can draw on the resources of a large university, share space, and social setting of the large university, yet preserve the intimacy of the university college. Also, it can offer a choice of programs in humanities, social and natural sciences, and I want to stress this. And students can choose a major only gradually. In theory, for this reason, it can prepare its students for any postgraduate program, whether it's in humanities, social sciences, or natural sciences. It is an intensive program for up to 600 students with core courses, unique curriculum, and seminar type of classes. The disadvantage might be the dependence on the home university supervision administration. Also, finances are directed usually through the rectorate, and this can cause a strain on funding. Overall, the benefit to the home university is the presence of an excellent undergraduate program that has a positive effect on faculty outside of the university college itself. It seems that if the government is willing to support university colleges, the overall benefit is substantial, as it is in the case of the Netherlands, where already 10 universities have established university college. And I want to stress, although BISLA that I lead is not university college, that the model of university college is worth emulating because it provides the student-based learning, relatively large choice of courses, while students master intellectual and social skills. Also, the dropout rate is very minimal. Next slide. The third model I mentioned briefly is introducing some elements of liberal arts into curriculum and methods teaching at regular medium-sized universities. The goal is to preserve the original departmental structure, but offer certain core courses common in a liberal arts setting. Also, students are encouraged to select courses from different departments in order to ensure diversity of their curriculum. However, the size of classes might still be larger than what liberal arts model recommends. There are some programs that offer a traditional lecture exam model, but offer diversity of choices and add some courses in order to improve intellectual skills. It has a chance to expand to some other countries where there is an effort to improve quality of teaching and learning and break the massification of lecture hall and the impersonal approach of undergraduate studies. This effort is, however, only a partial solution to improve the undergraduate education in Europe. Next slide. All these three models that I mentioned, independent colleges, university colleges, and small or medium-sized university, adding some elements of liberal arts, exist and function in different countries of Europe. University college is the dominant in the Netherlands, whereas the third model of implementing some aspects of liberal arts is gaining some popularity in the UK and Germany. Finally, the opportunity for creating an independent liberal arts colleges in Europe is quite limited because it must be supported by private donors, and there is no tradition similar to the United States. Hence, the liberal arts model, as they presently exist in Europe, have a limited scope and involve only a fraction of undergraduate students in the European Union. However, the quality of the graduates from these models is much higher than from other schools, and for that reason, they are in great demand by graduate school or employers. Also, they are proof that undergraduate education in Europe can be of highest quality. Let's go to the slide 22, which is about the new model proposed by Hans Adriaansens that could affect the entire educational system in Europe and would surely provoke resistance from many academic and political quarters. Hence, the chance of implementing of this radical revolutionary model are quite slim. Yet, if implemented, it would significantly enhance the study experience of undergraduate students and would affect millions of students. What are the key features of that proposal, that theoretical model? The first and most radical step would be to remove the bachelor studies from the single narrow discipline departments and instead allocate all undergraduate students to different university colleges. It would solve the most acute problem students have applying currently to university. As I've mentioned already, each student has to face the most difficult choice of selecting one narrow departmental study out of many hundreds or thousands. The university divided into colleges would not abolish departments themselves, for they would remain available for master and PhD students, while also serving the colleges with a variety of courses. What would change is the end of departmental monopoly over bachelor degree. Division into collegiate structure would actually imitate the old Oxford, Cambridge, or Oxbridge model of colleges still existing at those two great English universities and at many large universities in the United States and Canada. Thus, students would enter a college within a large university, choose a variety of courses, and gradually select a major field of study without committing themselves to a single departmental program right from the beginning. The students continuing from the same college would eventually disperse into a variety of subject area, yet they would share a common core and variety of different courses, as well as common social experience. Another major change would relate to the roles of teachers and students. Each of these colleges in this theoretical model would have to have an adequate number of full-time faculties with diverse academic background in order to offer tutorials to students, guiding them in their academic and personal formation. University would have to improve both academic prestige and financially reward teaching, which would have to become, again, a highly respected profession. And I want to stress this because teaching is no longer the most important thing at university. It is research, publication, PhD, not the teaching itself. And that's, I think, it's very unfortunate. Currently, a young academic who finishes PhD enters the teaching profession with little teaching experience and hardly any pedagogical preparation. In Europe, no PhD students have single pedagogical course, except in England. Once they start to teach at university, they have to pass a pedagogical minimum, so-called. But otherwise in Europe, anywhere, Germany, France, Slovakia, PhD students is thrown into the class without any pedagogical preparation. To reverse this trend, each teacher would be required to go through teachers training in order to succeed in student-based programs. Finally, Adriaansens argues that major part of such reform would involve undergraduate research as an integral part of collegiate education. It would require dramatic changes in the way research is currently valued as major university. And this is a very significant point, that undergraduate students, if they have a good supervision of excellent teacher, they actually can do research. If they just have a lecture and exams, they are not trained to research, only they learn to do research in their MA and PhD studies. But if the undergraduate education is of high quality, they can do a research. Next slide. The transformation of university into colleges, to be sure, would require further studies, debate, and preparation before it would be accepted by educators and politicians to replace the current departmental structure. Whatever the resistance of this new model would be, it would constitute a major positive change in the educational system. It would take several decades to implement, and if it is to succeed, it would have to be, first of all, a political decision, either in one country or on a Europe-wide level. Suffice to say, thanks to liberal arts education, there is a recipe for major improvement of European educational system. It is a matter of explaining to multiple stakeholders the advantage of what Adriaansens called the Dutch mix, a combination of liberal arts model with collegiate division of university. So if Korea is interested in the major reshuffle of your university, or at least a discussion, study the Hans Adriaansen's model. I can provide you with his very good paper if you wish. And there is a warning from Hans Adriaansen, who remarks about the future of European education. He said that last year. It is my firm belief that unless universities go collegiate, they will have trouble to survive. Let's move to a few words about Écolas. Next slide. Hans Adriaansen and myself have founded it in 2007. At the time, he was the Dean of Liberal Arts College in Middelburg, the Netherlands, and I became director of a newly created BISLA in Bratislava, Slovakia. Despite our different background and institutional operation, we soon realized it was necessary to create a network from similar institutions that were sporadically emerging around Europe. Only a web of such institutions cooperating together could influence the shape of bachelor studies. Since 2007, Écolas has been involved in numerous activities, connecting various liberal arts programs, organizing conferences, visits, and connecting various colleges to cooperate and spread information in their countries. Écolas has successfully applied for several projects supported by the European Commission. Roughly 40 liberal arts colleges and programs are now associated with Écolas, cooperating together on professional development, undergraduate research, quality standards, and exchange of students. Work is being done on assessing what it means to become a liberal arts program. We also examine what divides us and what connects us. The beauty of the liberal arts program is that they are all different. We have certain common denominators, but otherwise each school in each country, society can shape their program according to the local condition and setting. Next slide. Last year, we formulated a manifesto about the crisis of bachelor program in Europe. We stated in it, quote, "It is time to take a serious look at higher education in Europe. Europe's future requires careful examination of its universities and, in particular, the status, structure, and integration of undergraduate studies. Are the demands for the intellectual, social, and civic developments essential to meeting the challenges posed by the 21st century being met adequately? Does our undergraduate education respond to the needs of industry, government, and society in general? How will our students contribute to the democratic value of the European Union?" And we continue. This is a pressing problem. The current system does not address fully the increasing dynamism and innovation of the labor market. Its inflexibility impedes European efforts to develop distinctive educational strength vis-à-vis rising global competition. It narrows educational focus. Fails to cultivate in our youth the value of good citizenship in a time of widening polarization at home and abroad. And you can see from this manifesto that we are rather frustrated that the authorities, both in our countries or on European level, are very slow to implementing any change. As you, I'm surely know from your experience, that our educational university, and I work at a bit larger university for 15 years, large universities are very conservative institutions. They are very slow to change, and they can be almost reactionary to preserve the status quo. Just to finish about Écolas, we are starting a project, the European Youth and its Discontents, mapping the mood of young people of Europe. We will register their frustration, worries, but also hopes and ideals about the future. And the reason is that, because the political situation is unclear and the young people are confused. The populism is very strong. Many of them actually, surprisingly, support the extremism either on the right and left. So we want to map this situation among the young people, but we don't want to do only a survey of their views. Once we have their views and opinions from many hundred students around Europe, we will ask the scholars, writers, artists, former politicians to provide responses to those worries and hopes. The results will be database of problems and responses to them. And resulting publication will be distributed around Europe to hundreds of high schools and university teachers to have an ample source of topics to discuss in their classroom. Young people deserve our attention in the current unstable world ridden by populism and rising extremism and bleak prospects for their future. If anyone is interested to emulate this kind of project in Korea or wherever you are, I can send you the whole description. It is very interesting to map the situation among the young. How are they feeling? Then ask the responses and then distribute it so the young people in their words, they can express what they feel, but also can discuss it in the classroom and be very frank. Okay, let me conclude. The next slide. All the praise of liberal arts model, some could object, is just lobbying for a change of educational structure that is not that necessary. But what is at stake actually? For one, complacency is always dangerous. The challenges ahead of the 21st century seems much more urgent than they were even a decade ago. Something has snapped in the Western political and economic model, and there is no clear path of development. University can and must help facing up the social, political, and environmental crises that sooner or later in the course of this century, Europe and the globe will have to confront. And it is not simply a matter of legitimacy, but also about the moral responsibility. And this is kind of a response to the things I was saying at the beginning. Indeed, it is the responsibility of university to enter the public discourse. Liberal arts education seems an old remedy for new challenges. The reason is not some miraculous property of such educational model, rather its flexibility, its ability to adjust and to bring to the surface the best of human potential. To finish my talk, Bologna Declaration in 1999 allowed the bachelor-master division in Europe. It is the task of liberal arts to fulfill full potential of bachelor degree. Universities owe a high quality bachelor degree to their societies that finance them and protect them. They also owe it to the current and future generation of students who will sustain university and who will be able to keep the planet safe for the future. I hope, my friend in Korea, that you have and will have a similar debate about the condition of potential of the bachelor degree. I'm sure you already have a healthy discussion about the future of university in your country. As I recall from my visit 2 years ago when I debated personally with you about the situation in Korea. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah.